Hey everyone, I wanted to make a video as promised. I went on my Facebook Live a couple of days ago and I wanted to give you some information when it comes down to attorneys who is trying to collect a debt from you. Let me first start out. I am not an attorney. I cannot give uh, a perspective of legal full advice. I'm trying to give you a perspective from my own experience and some of the things I personally did that helped me, and information that helped other relatives of mine, close relatives of mine, that actually worked in the process with dealing with collection companies, and some attorney companies that is in the debt collection business. As I mentioned before, actually buying and selling debt is not in itself illegal. Happens a lot, happens often. But the problem is the law of contracts. Things boil down to consent, agreement. So mostly you have two types of basic contracts, and that's verbal and also a written agreement. Now, there's sometimes with taxis, restaurants, you have a use of service or you received a service, so you might have found an agreement that way. But normally you have to show where you actually received a good and service from that business that kind of bond an agreement of payment. Here's the problem when it comes down to credit card companies in particular. When it comes down to debts that's being pursued with an attorney as the debt collector, sometimes they would come on like they have purchased the debt and they own the debt. You would treat them, because what they are acting as a collection company, so they're collecting. They purchased a debt from any bank, Citibank, Capital One. I'm just using those as examples. And what happens is when you have a credit card company that you have used that card, you have a debt, it goes into collections. Usually that company itself tried to pursue that debt for a while, 6 to 7 months, and then after when it rolls over a lot of time to their fiscal year where they're filing their taxes, that company will charge that debt off. The IRS will give them a tax credit because they lost, let's just say, $2,000. The IRS said, oh wow, you had a bad debt, you took a loss. Don't worry about it. You don't have to pay us that $2,000. We're actually going to give you a credit and wipe the slate clean for you. So what happened is that credit card company, with the money and during your business relationship, they charged you interest. And then they charged it off. So the IRS made sure they did not take a loss. They actually won. They actually didn't lose any money at all. Even if you were paying on that card, they made interest off of you. So you need to understand that. A lot of people feel very guilty, but understand they're not taking a loss. Then what they do to even make more money, they take that debt and say, hey, we can't pursue it anymore. We charged it off to the IRS. That'll be double dipping if we actually take that. But we can sell the debt to ABC collection and you guys can pursue it. So this is a debt of $2,000. You give me $150, we'll sell it to you and you can pursue it. And a lot of times that's what they do. They sell the debt for pennies on the dollar. ABC collection company now contacts you and say, hey, you owe this debt to Capital One, Citibank, or whatever credit card company, and you have to pay us. So could be with an attorney company. A lot of times they'll purchase that debt and they pursue you. Now the problem is if that attorney is in your state, they have a huge advantage. If they're out of state, you would just treat them, like I had in my book, like a normal collection company, because it all stands the same way. They have to show that they actually have a right to collect on the debt. It always boils down to it. If you never signed a contract giving your personal consent that that debt can be sold, they don't have a right to step in and collect that debt, because a debt is owed doesn't give the next person the legal right to collect on that debt. All of us owe light, utility bills, and I cannot just knock on your door and demand that you pay me your light bill money, your gas bill money, even if that company gave me consent, because you never did business with me. I never gave you any goods and service, and you never agreed that you even wanted to do business with me. So same thing with these attorneys. They do the same thing. But the problem that comes in is when they're in your state, then they know the laws. And a lot of times what will happen, if you do not respond, they will file a lawsuit. Sometimes what they'll do is act as if they're the attorney for the original creditor. Let's say a Capital One or Citibank. They'll say they're representing them as their client, when technically they really bought the debt. But it would take you being savvy enough to actually prove that. And a lot of times you can do that, but you have to really find out what your state court rules are and what your state statutory law is, and also research the case law behind it, prior cases that took place and how prior judges ruled on that. But a lot of times you can keep it very simple. What you have to do, every court has a process where a complaint is filed against you, and then you have to answer the complaint. So what you need to do is, before it gets to that point, you need to ask for the original contract with your signature on it. And usually they cannot provide that, especially if it's a credit card debt. A lot of these things now are handled over the phone, online, and when you get that card in the mail, people rarely sign that contract and send it back. So what you would do, you have to go through your state process to answer the complaint. Every court has what's called a discovery process. That's when you can request documents for the other side to prepare for trial. A lot of times you can get to the root of who actually owned the debt if you send out interrogatory questions, certain questions, and if they don't answer it, courts have different processes to compel them, to make them answer those questions. But the problem with the attorneys in your state, they are very experienced at that. So what I always suggest with people, you consult an attorney. If you feel that you can handle it yourself, you have a right to defend yourself. But I suggest you consult, in this case, legal advice from an attorney in your state. But you can always have the option, if someone sues you, to find out from your court, how can you do a countersuit? If they are reporting items on your credit, you can countersue them for defamation of character, because they lied on, even if the debt is real, it doesn't mean they have the right to collect. They have to show actual right to collect. And a lot of times, if they don't have a contract with your signature, they're not going to be able to do that. Now, this is not the same as a lot of, repossession, car loans. Those usually you sit down and sign a contract, so you need to request it to see if they have it. Sometimes if they don't have it, then you go use the same principle. If they do have those kind of contracts, what you need to do is see if the fees that they're charging you and suing you for are valid. Because if they're reporting something that you don't owe and it's not the exact amount, then they're still lying on you. Because somebody might lend me money. It's a big difference between owing $100 and $2,000. So someone might have gave me a job, or might have extended me the credit, or maybe gave me the home mortgage loan that I was looking for. If you didn't have this stated lie, you defamed my character, and now I suffered financial loss in this amount. So that's a very tough case for them to prove, especially if they don't have a contract, if they don't have the original application and the real amount. When they send you those credit cards in the mail, they don't send it certified. So you might not remember, and I'm quite sure they don't have a definite on what the interest rate was. So you can dispute all of that, even if the original creditor, like a Capital One, is really pursuing you behind it. You can always say, hey, you still defaming my character. I don't owe that much. You're saying I owe you $10,000 when I might just really owe you, $200, $1,000. And I paid that on time. You charged me interest. Sometimes you at zero interest make one late payment, and then they charge you 29% interest. If you already owe $5,000 on that card and they change your interest rate because of a late payment, then it adjusts all your interest. Even other card companies that you already have, if they see you had a late payment on another credit card account, they'll go up on your interest rate. So you can account for all of that also as defaming your character and causing you to have loss. So I hope this is helpful for giving you information that if there is a law company in your state, do not take that lightly. If you have any collections, you read my book, Quick Guide on How to Boost Your Credit Fast and Stop Collections. It gives you keys to even deal with collection companies out of state, in your state. You need to take care of collections, because if it's out there for a long period of time, sometimes this is what happened. If they can't collect on it, they might sell to a creditor or a collection company in your state. And if they get an attorney, it can make it very problematic for you, and it can financially cripple you. They can garnish, your paycheck, go after certain, assets that you have. They can go and garnish and take money out of your bank account. So you want to take these things very seriously. So if you have any questions, comments, feel free to do it at the bottom of the video, and if I can help you, I will. I hope this is informational, and hit the like and subscribe button, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.